Today is January 6th, and if you're in France right now, every bakery window is filled with these, the Galette de Rois. I'm Carolyn, and I've been living in rural France for 3 years, and this is one of those traditions that really captures what I love about traditional living. It's ancient, it's communal, and it's still going strong. So let me show you what this is all about, because there's a lot more to this than just a fancy almond pastry. January 6th is Epiphany, the day the three kings supposedly arrived to visit the baby Jesus. In France, they celebrate with this, a galette de roi, which literally means king's cake. Now I picked this up from my local shop, and you can see it comes with this crown. But the real treasure is hidden inside. There's a tiny charm called a fève hidden somewhere in this cake, and whoever gets the fève in their slice becomes king or queen for the day. Here's where it gets interesting, because the French take this seriously. There's a whole ritual involved. The traditional way to divide this is called la main innocente, the innocent hand. The youngest person at the table, usually a child, goes under the table. Yes, literally under the table. Then someone points to a slice and asks, "C'est pour qui?" Who's this for? And the child under the table calls out a name. The idea is that this way nobody can cheat and make sure that they get the fève. Except, according to surveys, about 50% of French people admit to cheating anyway, usually to make sure a child gets it, or sometimes their romantic partner. One survey found that 17% of people just added extra fèves to avoid jealousy. Now let's talk about the fève itself, because this is where my collecting instincts kick in. The word fève literally means fava bean, because that's where they originally used, just a dried bean hidden in the cake. But during the Middle Ages, bakers started replacing them with little porcelain figures, usually religious icons, like the baby Jesus. By the 1800s, you're getting all kinds of whimsical designs, and by the 1900s, cartoon characters, pop culture. Today, they're usually plastic or ceramic, and they come in themed sets. And people collect these things. I mean, seriously collect them. They're called fabophiles, and some have thousands of them, organized by theme, by year, by bakery. As an American living in France, I love this tradition because it's one of those things that connects past and present. This isn't some reconstructed historical practice. This is living tradition. In my 20-plus years working with historical reenactment and traditional living, I've seen plenty of attempts to recreate old customs. But here, walk into any bakery in France right now, and this tradition is just happening. Families are gathering, kids are crawling under tables, people are wearing paper crowns. It's the same kind of thing I talk about with herbs, with traditional skills. These aren't museum pieces. They're living practices that people maintain because they bring joy and connection. And honestly, it's delicious. This is frangipane, almond cream and puff pastry. Even without the tradition, this is worth eating. What I find particularly interesting from a historical perspective is that this tradition exists in different forms across Europe and even in the United States, especially in New Orleans, where they have king cakes for Mardi Gras. In America, instead of a ceramic fève, they often use a tiny plastic baby to represent baby Jesus. Though these days bakers usually put it on top or give it to you separately because, well, it's a choking hazard. But the core idea, sharing a special food, finding a hidden treasure, crowning someone king or queen for the day, that's a pattern you see repeated across cultures and centuries. It speaks to something different about human community and celebration. Yes, 43% of people who find the fève actually wear the crown, according to the surveys. which, as someone who spent years in historical reenactment wearing all kinds of period-appropriate headgear, I fully support. If you're going to do a tradition, commit to it. Though I have to say, these paper crowns are a lot more comfortable than an 18th century bonnet in July. So that's the Galette des Rois. If you're in France or anywhere this tradition is celebrated, I hope you got to share one today. If you're not, well, puff pastry and almond cream are worth making any day of the year. This is exactly the kind of thing I mean when I talk about making old ways new again. Not recreating the past like a museum display, but finding the traditions that are still alive, still meaningful, still bringing people together. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a galette des rois, if you've collected fèves, or if you have a similar tradition where you live. And if you're new here, I'm Carolyn. I live in rural France in a 170-year-old stone house, and I make videos about herbalism, traditional living, and what it's really like living this way. Subscribe if that sounds interesting to you. A bientôt, and happy Epiphany.